prospect of extraterrestrial life intrigues humans. As such, it's no surprise that there are frequent accounts of terrifying stories recalling encounters with UFOs and alien abductions. This is despite, of course, the vast majority of people believing them to be little more than hoaxes, fabricated to fool the gullible. However, many of these alleged contactees report eerily sobering accounts of alien encounters with such vividness it makes one wonder if they might in fact be authentic. Why would a person invent such horrifying recollections in such detail? Many of the more seemingly genuine reports of these encounters often include descriptions of grotesque creatures capable of striking intense fear into their subjects. I suppose we should expect nothing less from apparent intruders to our planet whose ultimate goal may very well be to claim dominion over us. It seems likely that if this scenario is indeed the case, then they would not simply stop at gathering intel about our planet and way of life, but would seek to study our biology in intricate detail by abducting and experimenting us as a species. Apart from this, there are also many people claiming to in fact be aliens themselves. Could it be that these people are giving us the true picture? However you choose to look at it, these scary stories involving alien encounters are enough to keep even the most fearless of us awake at night. Number 5. Elizabeth Murray. Elizabeth Murray was involved in a traumatic event in 2012. One day she contacted her husband Scott, who hurried home to find her disoriented and in a state of severe shock. She was taken to the hospital by her husband, where doctors were unable to identify any signs of any serious injury. There was no indication Murray had been drugged, raped or assaulted in any way. However, present on one of her shoulders was a large burn. Upon closer inspection of the area around the home, Scott discovered similar burn patterns on and around a tree in their backyard. The ordeal would urge them to seek a hypnotist practicing regression, who assisted Murray to recall her repressed experiences of a terrifying encounter with and abduction by extraterrestrial beings. She remembered being experimented on by them, and the horror of the alleged event was so much that it ultimately led to her taking her own life. Number 4. Amy Rylance. Amy alleged that in 2001 she'd been abducted by aliens while residing at home in Australia. She'd been staying up late watching television while a friend read in the other room, and her husband slept upstairs. A beam of bright light emanated from the window in the room she was in, and moments later she was witnessed by her friend Rylance being pulled towards the source of the beam. Rylance's husband and friend desperately searched the nearby area for any sign of her and phoned the police to report her missing. When the police arrived, they scoured the scene, but there was no sign of Amy except for a torn screen on the open window. Below the window were 2 flowering bushes. One of these bushes had extreme heat exposure. It was during this investigation that a woman rang their house from the town of Mackay in Queensland, nearly 500 miles away. She had seen Amy confused and dehydrated and had taken her to hospital. Amy recalled falling asleep in the living room before waking up on a bench in a strange rectangular room. She called out for help when an unknown male told her to remain calm and that they'd drop her off close to their home. She then awoke in bushland. In hospital, they discovered several strange triangular arrangements on her inner right thigh and each of her heels. They also found distinct hair growth on her legs, suggesting that what seemed likely only a few hours on Earth appeared to be around 7 days for Amy, as she shaved regularly. When researching this case, it reminded me of the Travis Walton abduction. He had claimed to be abducted by aliens while working in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest near Snowflake in Arizona, and reappeared 5 days later. Number 3. Boriska Kiprianovich. Russian citizen Boriska Kiprianovich has continued to confound experts. at an incredibly young age, he could read and write, and just a week after his birth, was able to hold his head upright, unassisted. Most impressively of all, however, was his in-depth knowledge of areas of information he had never studied. What is Kiprianovich's explanation for this? According to him, before being born into this life, he was a Martian living on the Red Planet in a post-nuclear apocalyptic society underneath the planet's surface. He alleges that this Martian species, who are said to average 7 feet tall, still inhabit the planet in underground cities. Apparently, their civilization also has a connection with ancient Egypt, with him suggesting that a mysterious key remains hidden in the Great Sphinx behind the ear of the statue. Number 2. Yaphet Kotto. Yaphet Kotto, famous for his role in the film Alien, among others, disclosed during an interview with Vice that he has been involved in numerous alien encounters throughout his life. He explains that his first experience occurred when he was only 9 years of age. He also alleges that alien craft observe him and that have even abducted him. Kotto explains that his aim in speaking about this is to spread awareness about alien encounters and urge people to think about what they may mean for humanity. They aren't going to go away, and honestly believe that these species are going to be making themselves known in the century to this generation. I believe their purpose is to make sure we don't kill ourselves. We're losing our rivers, lakes, mountains, and our caps are melting. We need to take a serious look at what we're doing, and they're going to help us do that. Number 1. John Edmonds. John was desperate to sell his Arizona ranch after surviving years of malicious encounters with aliens. According to Edmonds, after he had moved in with his wife in 1995, they had witnessed portals and alien creatures, and that they would attempt to carry out abductions of his wife. Edmonds claims that his home had been an epicenter for alien activity ever since he first moved in with his wife 20 years ago. What is creepiest of all is that the previous residents were never reported to have moved out. They had just disappeared, and all of their stuff was still in the house, Edmonds explained. These extraterrestrials seem to have a fondness for John Edmonds' property. He alleges that he's observed them and listened to them move around his sunroom, and apparently their mere presence has caused parts of the house to become damaged. The speed generated by 3 of them at once made the glass in the double-pane windows actually buzz and misalign in the frames, to the point the windows are now very difficult to close and lock properly without using a screwdriver to realign them in the frame first. I believe the high-frequency buzz is a side effect of their partial in-phase or out-of-phase interdimensional travel. Others have witnessed these ETs as well. During an online interview over Google Hangouts with Kerry Cassidy, host of Project Camelot, a small figure came into view behind Edmonds. After a violent struggle with a few of the creatures, John Edmonds said that there was a considerable amount of tissue and fluid specimens left behind from the greys, which continued to torment him and his wife. Edmonds claims that these samples were collected after he nearly split a grey in 2 parts with an exceptionally well-shaped samurai sword. According to the researchers who analysed the specimens, the sample of fluid appears to be pure hemoglobin, while the skin looks like segmented grass, except it's not grass. Edmonds claims that violent encounters with these alien creatures are common occurrences, and he has the scars to show it. One image shared by Edmonds depicts a particularly brutal mark, which he claims came from battle with malevolent ETs. Both Edmonds and his wife claim to have experienced skin punctures, triangular depressions in the skin, and severe bruising, and skin disfigurement, similar to what one would experience if exposed to radiation, followed by nausea, gastrointestinal distress, and chronic fatigue and muscle weakness. A team of researchers apparently witnessed an alien while investigating the Stardust Ranch property. It came to a sudden halt and then dropped a strange item onto the ground. It was a small rounded stone with a hollowed out interior which seemed to resemble the mysterious portals reported by Edmonds. Arizona's 12 News interviewed a previous occupant of the ranch named Gina Irons. Like Edmonds, she also claims to have experienced bizarre occurrences on the property while living there in the early 1970s. She remembers her family being eager to leave after she and her siblings were distressed by a terrifying encounter with a green creature lurking in one of the hallways at the property. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit like. It really helps to keep the channel growing. And if you're new here, subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest videos. We've got lots of strange and fascinating stories coming up, and we'd love to have you along for the journey. It was the afternoon of Friday, August the 13th, 1982, in Arvada, Colorado, a suburban city west of Denver, Colorado. Denise and Ed Stoner were anticipating their upcoming weekend getaway to their mobile home situated on the Grace Acre Ranch near the town of Buena Vista, some 137 miles to the southwest. The Stoners were part of a close-knit community of around 50 families who kept their trailer parked year-round on Grace Acre's property. During the summer months, the Stoners made it a ritual to regularly spend the weekends at this home away from home, a welcomed escape from the city. The trailer was the last in a line of campers nestled close to the fields and the Arkansas River, which cut through the ranch's lands. The Arkansas was known worldwide as an excellent destination for whitewater rafting, its clear blue waters lined with river rocks and boulders. For the Stoners, their trailer site provided a tranquil reprieve, while the only sounds were the river's gentle flow and the occasional rumbling of trains that crossed the property. Denise and Ed had constructed their own personal campsite amenities, a fireplace, table and chairs, and an outhouse, all situated a short distance from the ranch house itself. Beyond their trailer and campsite, there was nothing but open sky and open fields, along with the majestic peaks of the Colorado Mountains. Not far from their camper, next to the river, were the remains of a cabin dating back nearly a century, believed to have been inhabited by some of the area's earliest settlers. The Stoners loved spending their days hiking for miles and searching for Native American arrowheads and other artifacts left behind from when the Ute people would camp in the area during the summer seasons before the land was settled by Europeans. This particular weekend, Denise's parents and a close family friend had gone ahead to the ranch earlier to set up camp and prepare for a weekend of entertainment, relaxation, and fishing at the headwaters of the Arkansas River. Denise and Ed were expected to arrive no later than 8:30 p.m. for a dinner being prepared by Denise's mother. As the afternoon transitioned to early evening, Denise had finished loading their blue and white Ford Granada with food, clothing, and gear, with help from a 14-year-old daughter, Deanna, while Ed tended to loose ends from his job as an operations manager at a flooring business in Boulder. Finally, at 5 p.m, the three family members and the 6-year-old Shih Tzu dog, Ginseng, piled into the car and set off, with Ed driving. Ed then filled up the gas tank and checked the odometer reading near their Arvada home. The sky was clear and the traffic was light as they made their way onto the backcountry roads heading southwest. Traffic became more congested as they emerged onto US Highway 285, the main route that would take them through Denver's western suburbs to the mountain towns of Conifer, Bailey, and Grant, before climbing up Kenosha Pass, a 10,000-foot-high passage that marked the beginning of their journey into Colorado's Front Range Mountains. After navigating the winding mountain roads, the traffic finally thinned as they crossed over Kenosha Pass and began their descent down towards the broad, open expanse of South Park Valley spread out below. This was a familiar routine for Ed, who always stopped at the scenic overlook on Kenosha Pass to take in the breathtaking views of the valley and the town of Jefferson at its base. Denise opted to remain in the car while Ed and Deanna briefly took in the vista before piling back in with Ed, once again assuming the driver's seat. The sun was still high in the sky to the west as Ed made the turn to begin their downward journey towards the valley fort below Jefferson. He and Denise were thoroughly relaxed, their conversation casually drifting from one subject to the next while taking in the vast clear views while their daughter slept in the back. As they passed through Jefferson, Denise was attracted to two yellow-white lights that were increasing in size and appeared to be rapidly approaching their car. They were 4 miles south of Jefferson when the lights were now sitting above the car. All of a sudden, the Stoners' vehicle began to move sideways off the highway, as if it were under someone else's control. Then, after what appeared to be mere seconds, the Stoners found themselves beyond the southern end of the Mosquito Range, driving up Trout Creek Pass beyond South Park Valley. But what was most concerning was that they had no memory of driving through the valley or the town of Fairplay, south of Jefferson, on the stretch of US 285 that led to Buena Vista. Moments before, it was broad daylight, and now it was total blackness in the valley, and they could not account for the last 40 miles. The couple were confused, and why was it suddenly dark, and who had turned on the car's headlights? It certainly wasn't Ed. Only moments before, the sun was shining. Ed was starting to panic, and his wife screamed out, "What the hell just happened?" Ed quickly pulled the car to the side of the road to check his watch. It seemed that only seconds ago it was 6:55 p.m, and it was now nearly 11 p.m. Feeling totally disoriented, Ed's fear increased even more when he checked the car's odometer, which read 74 miles, which had been the exact same reading when they were 4 miles south of Jefferson hours earlier. There was not only a major discrepancy in time, but in travel miles. It appears that the stretch of highway that they had regularly travelled upon from Jefferson to Trout Creek Pass had for some reason not registered on the odometer. They'd lost 40 miles on the trip odometer, and more than 3 hours had passed. Ed and Denise sat in silence on the side of the road in an attempt to put together their lost time. There was no explanation for their lost time and the missing miles. They then got back in the car to continue their journey to Trout Creek Pass, Johnson Village, and Buena Vista before finally reaching their destination at Grace Acre Ranch. As their car drove into the ranch, they were all met by a concerned group. Their friends were standing in the road watching to see if the headlights coming down the driveway were theirs. They all had anxious expressions on their faces until one in the group asked what happened and why were they so late, as it was almost 11:45 p.m. Why has it taken them 6 hours to reach the ranch? Ed's father-in-law was so concerned that it almost called the police. When Ed checked his odometer, it showed 97 miles from their house in Nevada to their destination north of Buena Vista. On every previous journey they'd taken, the odometer had shown 137 miles. Why was there a 40-mile discrepancy? Denise's mother felt something was not right and insisted that her daughter give her a rational explanation. And when the couple explained what had really happened, they realized that, as strange as it sounded, they were not lying, even though they really didn't know what had happened and were still a bit shaken by their ordeal. The Stoners returned home confused, but none the worse for wear. If Denise had known about organizations dealing with UFO abductions, she could have filed a missing time report, but by 1982, the US Air Force had shut down Project Blue Book, its UFO investigation branch, in December 1969. So the Stoners had nowhere to report their sighting and missing time event. The perplexing event weighed on Denise's mind, and she was determined to find an answer, and it would take 30 years before she was able and confident enough to ask for help in solving their mystery. However, sometimes it is best not to delve too much into your past, because it turns out that this was not Denise Stoner's first experience with aliens, where she would later find that she'd been abducted by the same alien over 50 times during the course of her life. Being a whistleblower can be daunting and dangerous at the best of times, but if you dare to blow the whistle on UFOs or aliens, it can be downright deadly, and maybe cost you your life. The following people try to expose UFOs and aliens, and you have to ask the question, did it cost them their lives? These are 9 UFO whistleblowers who have died. Number 9. James Forrestal. James V. Forrestal was America's first Secretary of Defense, and reliable sources state that Forrestal was one of the initial members of the newly formed Majestic 12. Forrestal believed that the public should be told the truth about the UFO problem. When he began to talk to leaders of the opposition party and leaders of the Congress about the alien problem, he was asked to resign by President Truman. He expressed his fears to a number of people and believed that he was being watched. Forrestal later was said to have suffered a mental breakdown and was committed against his will to Bethesda Naval Hospital, where it was held under Marine guard. Many feared that the Forrestal would begin to talk again, and therefore had to be isolated and discredited. On May the 22nd, 1949, 7 weeks after his admission to the hospital, Forrestal plunged from a 16th floor window of the hospital to his death. Allegations arose that agents threw Forrestal out the window and he plummeted to his death. Forrestal is considered to have been one of the earliest victims of the great UFO cover-up, which started after the Roswell crash of 1947. Number 8. Phil Schneider. Phil Schneider was born in 1947 at Bethesda Naval Hospital. Philip Schneider claimed that his father, Captain Oscar Schneider, was involved with the infamous Philadelphia experiment. Philip claimed to be an ex-government structural engineer who was involved in building underground military bases around the country, and to be one of only 3 people to survive the 1979 incident between the alien Greys and US military forces at the Dulce underground base. For 2 years prior to his death, Philip Schneider had been on a lecture tour talking about government cover-ups, black budgets, and UFOs. Philip stated in his lecture that in 1954, under the Eisenhower administration, the federal government decided to circumvent the Constitution and form a treaty with extraterrestrials. The treaty was called the 1954 Greater Treaty. Officials agreed that for extraterrestrial technology, the Greys could test their implant techniques on select citizens. However, the extraterrestrials had to inform the government who had been abducted and subject to the implants. Slowly over time, the aliens altered the bargain, abducting and implanting thousands of people without reporting back to the government. Philip Schneider's ex-wife believes that Philip was murdered because he publicly revealed the truth about the USA government's involvement with UFOs. Number 7. Ronald Rummel. Ron Rummel was an ex-Air Force intelligence agent and publisher of the Alien Digest. On August 6, 1993, Rummel allegedly shot himself in the mouth with a pistol. However, no blood was found on the pistol barrel, and the handle of the weapon was free of fingerprints. Also, the suicide note left by the deceased was written by a left-handed person. Rummel was right-handed. Perspiration on the body smelled like sodium pentothal, a truth serum. The Alien Digest ran to 7 limited editions, but are now almost impossible to acquire. It appears that Ron Rummel's magazine was touching on sensitive issues, such as the predatory-prey aspect of the alien-human relationship and the use of humans as food and recyclable body parts. Did Rummel cross a forbidden line? Interestingly enough, one of Rummel's friends was Phil Schneider, and the two had been collaborating. Number 6. Dean Warwick. On Saturday, October the 7th, Dean was to speak at a UFO conference in Blackpool called Probe International, and was the last speaker of the afternoon. It was hoped that Dean would blow the whistle about his experiences and knowledge regarding the NSA, missing children, and extraterrestrials. Dean had already gone public and completed an interview a couple of weeks earlier with investigative journalist Dave Starbuck. At that stage, Dean had only talked about a fraction of what he really knew. When Dean was only minutes into his talk on stage, he collapsed unconscious on the floor. He had stopped breathing, and an ambulance was called, but Dean had died on stage. When Dean collapsed on the floor, a woman witnessed the man with dark hair slip out of the hall. She followed this man, who then proceeded to walk down the stairs, whistling merrily to himself, get into a car, and make a phone call, where he was then seen laughing down the phone. Number 5. Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson was once MUFON's Deputy Director of Investigations, and another job was with the Institute of Advanced Studies, purportedly working on UFO propulsion systems. Apparently, he held high security clearances, travelled frequently between San Antonio and White Sands, and had attended 2 secret NATO meetings. One of these meetings was set to deal with ET communications. On June the 9th, 1994, while attending a Society of Scientific Exploration meeting in Austin, Texas, Johnson died suddenly amid very strange circumstances. He was 43 years old and excellent in health, as he had just passed a recent physical examination. During a slideshow, several people sitting close to him heard a gasp. When the lights were turned back on, Johnson was slumped over in his chair, his face purple, with blood oozing from his nose. What killed Ron Johnson, as it is quite easy today to induce strokes through chemicals or pulsed radiation. It is also easy to induce a heart attack. The biggest probability is that Ron Johnson was eliminated by a quick-acting toxin or maybe a nerve agent. The autopsy has been officially classified as inconclusive. Number 4. James McDonald. James Edward McDonald was an American physicist and was known for his research regarding UFOs. McDonald was a senior physicist at the Institute for Atmospheric Physics. McDonald campaigned in support of expanding UFO studies during the mid and late 1960s, arguing that UFO represented an important unsolved mystery which had not been adequately studied by science. McDonald interviewed over 500 UFO witnesses, uncovered many important government UFO documents, and gave important presentations of UFO evidence. He testified before Congress during the UFO hearings of 1968, where he said, "UFOs are entirely real, and we do not know what they are because we have laughed them out of court. Possibility that these are extraterrestrial devices, that we are dealing with surveillance from some advanced technology is a possibility I take very seriously. I've become convinced that the scientific community has been casually ignoring as nonsense a matter of extraordinary scientific importance." Dr. James McDonald died in 1971, reportedly of a gunshot wound to the head, and died in mysterious circumstances, leading some people to believe he was murdered. Number 3. Stephen Schiff. Stephen Schiff was an American politician for the 1st District of New Mexico, but also had an interest in the UFO phenomena. Congressman Stephen Schiff made a major effort to uncover the truth behind the Roswell crash story. Schiff pressed the GAO in the 1990s and demanded financial records that would have proven the existence of the Roswell incident in July 1947. He was stonewalled and eventually silenced. Unfortunately, he died of cancer in 1998 before he could accomplish his task. The question raised is that there have been an alarming number of people who have died suddenly and mysteriously from cancer who were involved in UFO research. Number 2. Dr. John Mack. Dr. John Mack was an American psychiatrist, writer, and professor at Harvard Medical School. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer and a leading authority on the spiritual or transformational effects of alleged alien abduction experiences, and was prepared to tell stories of abduction, and hundreds of people who claim they were abducted still revere him. John Mack was killed in a road accident in North London in 2004. Number 1. Orange Hollandia. Orange Hollandia was a Brazilian Air Force operation commander who was sent by the government to interview witnesses of an apparent UFO invasion. In the months of October to December of 1977 and during the first half of 1978, the Brazilian state of Pará was invaded by UFOs. Bright objects in several shapes and sizes flew over the Marajo Bay region at low altitude, a few meters above the trees, and fired strong light beams at the people, who described the UFO pilots as small alien beings. Part of this report came to the public through an interview Hollandia gave to a Brazilian UFO magazine, where he told them that he was an operation commander sent by the government to investigate the facts. Hollandia committed suicide in 1997.